Yeah, what I wanted to do today is I met a individual through Facebook, and I want to just kind of tell you about a story of this individual, and some of the things that we talked about, and some of the things that I did to help the family here. How many people here have heard of Alpha Computers of Richland, Washington? And didn't think anybody would. So there was a gentleman named John Freer, and he ran an Apple store back in the early 80s all the way up to the mid 90s in Richland, Washington. And lo and behold, he collected a lot of material. Now, I wanted to try to have them zoom in today, and John is suffering from dementia. He's gotten really bad over the last year and a half or so. But prior to the pandemic, when I talked to him, he was still pretty with it, and was talking about some of the things with his computer store. We did a Zoom conversation there. He visited the West Coast Computer Fair, and went down to California and talked about a lot of that stuff. So I wanted to just take a few minutes to talk about him today. And this is a picture of John with a 128K Mac. And again, it was Alpha Computers of Richland, and John Freer was the owner. Well, interestingly enough, what happened is he collected and amassed all of this stuff and put it in his basement, like we all do, in his basement. And he had a lot of stuff, and his daughters decided that they were, he wanted to get rid of it and, clear out the basement. His wife was yelling at him to clear out the basement, and I'll show you some of the pictures here. So they put it up on Facebook, and they said, they wanted to sell the whole collection on there. Well, interestingly enough, what happened is that there are a lot of, and you guys, know this from on eBay. I don't know if you've ever seen, the Apple wrenches on eBay. There's somebody on there selling them for like $50 a wrench, and they call them the Bell & Howell wrenches, even though they came in multiple colors, black, gold, and green. So it's Bell & Howell, so it's a $50. So they had a lot of people interested, but they were the people that wanted to buy the collection and then turn around and sell it for ludicrous prices. And they even had people in the middle of the night knocking on their door, and the stuff wasn't even there. It was at their father's place, and so she was saying this all on Facebook. She pulled it down, and I said, finally, then I got involved. I said, look, you can, I'm not one of those people. You can look at my presentations at KansasFest, look at all of that stuff. So I got talking with them, and this is a little bit of the material about the Alpha Computers of Richland. He opened it in the early 1980s. It was actually located 10 miles from the Hanford Nuclear Reservation. He sold only Apple products and provided repair services for these Apple products and hands-on training for years. Initially, the sales were slow, but they picked up as businesses and schools started to buy and requesting the Apple products. PowerPoint. And he attended the West Coast Computer Fair, and he told me some stories about meeting Woz and some of the people from Apple and some of the adventures that he had at the West Coast Computer Fair. And his wife back then, and you'll see a picture of it in one of the pictures coming up, his wife back then bought one of the kits to hook the rugs with the Apple logo on it. You'll see that on there. So she hooked the, and put the rugs, and that loomed behind the counter with one of the kites until the store closed at that point. And it was interesting because when I talked to John, he knew the name and what everybody did of every employee that ever worked at his store, and there were a bunch of them at this point. This is one of the things that they posted on Facebook, and when you walk and look through this stuff, it's like a collector's dream. They had books. There's an Apple IIc, 2C Plus sitting there. You'll see these drives later. Those were Post-it notes that were made for dealers. That you basically had a stack of Post-it notes with the Apple logo on it, and you'll see the Alpha Computer name on the side there, and then a whole slew of keyboards. So this was one half of the basement down there with the collection on there. It had everything from Mac 128Ks all the way through SC30s. So the first question I asked is, did you take the batteries out of it? He did, took the batteries out of a lot of them, which was good because a lot of these then didn't have, the battery bombs on them. And again, here was a whole box of super serial cards. There were probably 100 of them in there at that point. And again, people saw these pictures and they salivated and they saw dollar signs in there. There's a picture of the rug. There's the kite. Yes, there were 2 Bell and Howells there. You'll see that there's a Mac 2 FX and a Mac 2 up here, Mac 2 CI, couple of 2GSs, and all kinds of stuff sitting on the floor here. There's some Power PCs, a Power PC server. And in case you needed floppy drives, he had floppy drives, and there were one of every variety here, except the Twiggy.
I was gonna say,
But you'll see that there are a bunch of disc 2s, you see some of the 400Ks, these were Unidiscs, Apple II disc drives, some of them had the school thing on them. Yes, there's a duo disc sitting there, and a profile sitting there, and an Apple scanner. So all of this stuff, flip back here. And then this was the other side of the basement, and again, it was all Mac 128Ks, keyboards, and so forth. So they had all of this on there, and then this was a Apple IIc that had the name of the computer on it. So diskettes, we talk about diskettes. They're actually going to work with me and get these diskettes packed up and shipped, and then I'm going to ship them to Jason. And because again, there are a lot of user group disks here, and a lot of things that that they have in there that they don't even know what they have, and obviously more disks there. So I got to know the family, and I said, well, the thing you might want to do is look around at some of the auction. And again, this is back in 2020, right when the pandemic hit. Look at some of the auction houses. Use eBay, some of those things to sell. And they actually did that, and he had a box of those wrenches that were $49.95, stuck them on eBay for $2 a piece, sold 1 million of them, and then the guy that had them on there for $49.95 had none of them. I think it was $1 or $1.50, $2 a piece for those types of things. Sold a lot of the Bell and Howell stuff, and they actually made a lot of money to give to their father. So that he can, go take, and his mother, so that they can take vacations and so forth. But what they really did was a lot of the people from the Apple community, left messages and so forth for them. So a lot of this stuff went back out into the Apple community instead of somebody buying it and flipping it for a whole bunch of cash, because they put the prices up there pretty reasonable. And again, a lot of the people in the community bought the stuff and then left messages on eBay and some of the other things, and they put some of the things at auction at that point. Had I known that we were going to do a museum here at KansasFest, a lot of the memorabilia they would have graciously donated, to us here to do that. But it was, and now we're friends with the family out there. We've never visited in Washington, but if we ever go out there, we'll definitely see. Ed and Christy were. Christy was his other daughter, and Ed was Christy's husband. They got all of this stuff. Ed knew nothing about computers. I talked him through how to test the disk drives and all of that kind of stuff, and he actually become pretty savvy at the Apple II stuff. And he actually kept a couple of the Apple IIs so that he can start, playing with them and that. But it was an interesting journey with this family, and some of the interesting collectibles and so forth that they had. So. Any questions?
Did they indicate, kind of why their father kept all of those computers? Was it just surplus merchandise, or did he have an interest in actually using them? Or
yeah, well, it was just like anything. And I guess when you have an Apple store, you have like the back room, and you have all that stuff in the back room. And then when they closed the store, had to go somewhere. He did it for years. Didn't want to throw them out. Brought them to his basement and put them in his basement. So. Any other questions? Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about that. So, and there's some more Power PCs. This is an interesting interesting thing. They asked about this, and I don't know who this was, but this John was his name. This was probably somebody that worked for Apple at the time. I couldn't quite make the signature out there, but this was in 1983. So,
When did the store shut down?
what's that?
When did the store shut down?
1991, I believe it shut down. So, and they moved everything there. But yeah, he met Steve Jobs once. He met Wozniak a lot of times. A lot of people from Apple came there. And again, started out slow. The store started out really slow, but then it was the schools and the businesses in the area that everything picked up and sold everything from the Apple II all the way, II Plus, all the way up, until the end when the John Scully era. So.
That cartoon on the right, now the guy has got a boxing glove on his right hand.
Yeah.
And that sounds like it's probably got some kind of symbolic meaning. I mean,
It's an
was he in a
apple.
fight with the company or something?
No, I don't think so. I think this was something for sales quota. So it says, yeah, something in sales or whatever. But yeah, this.
It says somebody here mentioned it's probably an apple with a bite out of it is what it looks like instead of a boxing glove.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, I thought it was a glove.
Yeah, it does.
Apples and die in '83.
Yeah. Apple and I in '83. I told them I would show this here. Somebody might know, but I didn't know who this was. So if you do or know later, let me know. But
Totally different meaning than a boxing glove.
yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Any other questions that you have? So, okay. All right, that was the surprise.